Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. With me, as always, is Mark Goldhart, my lovely co-host. Mark, what's going on, dude?
Oh, I am great. Nothing much going on, though, in my life. It's just Black Friday season, so I guess we're busy. We're busy right now.
Yeah, it's Black Friday season. It's all hands on deck right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you know what?
Late nights, early mornings.
What I love, though, actually, about this year with like Black Friday is, 2-3 years ago, Black Friday was only Friday through Monday, actual Black Friday through Cyber Monday. And so like Thanksgiving is my just ultimate worst holiday because of that, and because you're just like all hands on deck because 30% of people's businesses rely on 4 days of the year. It seems like, and
Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. So
I love Thanksgiving.
Hard. It's so great.
It is the best holiday, but it is the worst in our world sometimes. Right. So, but I've loved like the last 2 years, Black Friday starts early. And so like, you don't have everything relying on 4 days. It's relying on 4 days here and then a break there, 4 days here. And then, so that's why I dig the new modern day Black Friday personally. Well, dude, let's introduce our guest today. This is a guest I've actually been super excited to have on for a minute now. His name is Taylor Offer, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Feet Clothing. Taylor, what's going on, dude?
What's up? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Also known as the bagel scoop guy.
That is my new identity, the bagel scoop guy. It's crazy. You can go do a lot of things in your life, and then you scoop one bagel, and you're the bagel scoop guy.
You're that guy.
Dude, I'm like a small town guy. I don't know anything about bagels. So this is an honest question. Are bagel scoops a thing, or was that a joke? I don't know. Like, is there actually bagel scoops in Los Angeles?
Well, first of all, I have a question for you. Small towns don't have bagels? What's up with being a small town and not having bagels?
Dude, they're like Salt Lake City does not have. I mean, it's a small city. There's some bagel shops, but like,
it's very true.
It's not a thing here. Like, there's not truly bagel shops here.
Well, not only that, Taylor, but Utah's like notorious for like, we're chains. Like, we're all about chains. Like,
chain restaurants.
I think it froze, but I'm going to keep talking here.
There's no bagel.
Please, explain it to me. What is a bagel scoop? Why did this upset New Yorkers so much?
A scoop bagel is like, it's a culture. It's a thing. Everyone scoops. It makes so much sense, especially from a young age. Like my family, we'd go you get the baker's dozen where you get 12 bagels and you get one for free if you get 12. So you get 13 bagels. And we'd go home and I would eat like 2 or 3 bagels when I was like 12 years old. Like that was the thing, but you scoop it out. So the best part of the bagel, as everyone knows, is the external part. Everything bagels, you have all the seeds, you have all the flavor. So if you could scoop them, you could eat like 2 or 3 bagels full of all your toppings, all your things and the seeds, or you could just waste your time getting full on one bagel. So scoop bagels are definitely a thing, especially in LA, even in New York. And then I guess I just pissed off some New Yorkers. I think it was a lot of my energy where it's just like this Cali bro, scoop bagel, blah, blah, blah. And that just pissed me.
It was more of the energy. It's like, what are you going to ask for? Avocado toast next? Like, get out of here.
Yeah, honestly. And it was like, the internet is crazy. It's like, once it starts dogpiling, like it's just a dog pile and it's a free for all. Then they started going after my haircut. They started going after my skin. They started going after the way I talk. And like, it was just left hook, right hook. And I was just cracking up. Like some of the stuff people were saying was so funny.
Well, I think if people pay attention to your social profile, they'll know that you certainly are not scared of some controversy.
No, not. I mean, I don't really care I have a really close-knit family and close-knit group of friends. And then outside of that, I do not care what anybody thinks about me. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Dude, that is actually something that I'd love to talk to you about, because in the day of social media, I think one of the biggest problems with social media is everyone thinks that they need to care about everyone's opinions. Right. And even though social media can be such a valuable tool for companies and for people to build personal brands, it can also just kind of like consume and destroy people. So I'd love to hear about your personal thoughts and journey. Like, you have a pretty solid social following. You've built this brand as well on social, using social media. So how do you keep your head straight and and make sure that those relationships stay solid to help you keep grounded?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that I grew up in an amazing family. I have such a good base where I have an older sister, younger brother, I have some nieces. We still do family dinners a couple times a week. And that is just like a ability for me to be super grounded and just remember what matters. So yeah, everything outside of that doesn't really matter at all. And I think that's enabled me to grow on social media because like, if someone's making fun of me or like saying something, you don't know me. I don't care what you said. And that's powerful. Another big thing is I think a lot of people get hooked on the dopamine of social media, right? And even people without big followings, like even if you have 12 followers and you post a picture of your cat and you get 3 likes, you're checking, like everyone feels that. So I have this system down where I have a flip phone, as you can see here. Like this is
Nice.
always on me 24/7. And then I leave my iPhone at my desk. So I treat my iPhone like my computer. I only use it when I'm at my desk working. When I leave my desk, you can call my flip phone. If you're important, you have my number. If not, like I am off the grid for like 12 plus hours a day, which most people don't have that ability to reset. They get so caught up in this spin cycle of social that they don't even know what reality is anymore. They're spending 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day in this virtual world and it's not real. So it's like it's easy to lose your sense of reality. So I'm pretty conscious about staying grounded and disconnecting from that matrix.
Dude, I love that. One of the things that one of the things that you said is something that like I kind of had this like realization a few months ago, which was when you have a foundation of values, right? So like what you had said is like, hey, I eat dinner with my family. I grew up in a tight knit family and I eat dinner with them twice a week. Like you obviously have these family values, things that are more important to you than feet, than your social media profile, than the likes, than the hate or whatever. And I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of people who create content and who own businesses lack is this like value section of their life that is their foundation. And then everything else is built upon that. What do you think about that?
100%. And I don't want to make it seem like I always had this. Like,
sure,
I struggled a lot, especially in my early 20s, right? I'm 30 now. So I've been running feet for 8 years and doing social media and e-com for 8 years. And 8 years ago, like all that was on social media that I would consume was Gary Vee saying, hustle, grind, don't enjoy your 20s, fuck your family, fuck your friends, don't do shit, work 30 hours a day.
Dude.
And I adopted that mindset, right? And at 22, 23, like I did that. All I did was work. All I did was quote unquote grind. And I was able to get success with it. We were able to do collabs with some of the biggest people in the world, like Logan Paul and the Chainsmokers. I got named Forbes 30 to 30. We were doing millions of dollars in revenue at 23 years old. And it didn't feel good. I was like, shit, I am empty inside. Like, this sucks. I don't like this feeling. And that's what happened when I kind of prioritized the wrong things. And I realized like, you can get all the external success in the world, but if you're not happy, what's the point? And that's why I started like really auditing my time and really auditing like what brings me joy? When am I at peace? And I realized like whenever I touch my cell phone, my happiness goes down, my anxiety goes up. And even small things like when I touch my phone and I go on Instagram, I start breathing faster. My breath becomes more shallow. I get a little more tense. And once you become conscious of those things, you're like, shit, why would I touch that phone? Why would I want that in my pocket 24/7, right? Versus when I'm hanging out with my family, I'm sitting back. My body language is relaxed. I'm happy. I'm not thinking about things all the time. And so it's really important to be conscious of what you do and how it makes you feel. And the more you can get in control of that, I think a lot of people have this fear of like stepping off the gas, which I did too, right? You have this fear of someone's going to go outwork you, someone's going to blah, blah, blah. But like, it's not about how many hours you work. It's about being efficient with it. And like when I was working and grinding, I wasn't efficient at all. I would scroll Twitter and Instagram for 7 hours a day and be like, I was grinding. It's like, no, I wasn't. I wasn't doing anything important. I was just refreshing my email inbox, waiting for an email to come up. That was such a waste of time. So just being more conscious of time and how it makes you feel.
Dude, what made that transition for you to like be in that hustle culture of the Gary Vee? Because like we're all I'm 35, Mark's 34. We're all like not to put you 5 years older than you are, but we're all roughly in a very similar age. So we grew up in those same, like I grew up listening to Gary Vee, exact same stuff, right? In my 20s, like, oh my gosh, I am not working hard enough. Like, what was it that pulled you out of that made
Depression.
you? Okay.
Depression.
What do you mean?
Being depressed. Like I got to I hit rock bottom. I actually hit rock bottom. And I remember it was 2018. It was like a Tuesday morning. And I was like, I can't do this. I need to go. And I need to go somewhere. And I had my business partner at the time. I said, can you drive me to the airport? He's like, what are you talking about? I had nothing. Literally the clothes I was wearing and my wallet. I didn't take my phone. I didn't take my computer. I had no form of anything, nothing. And I went to the airport and I said, give me the next flight as far away as possible and on a one-way, and I'll come back when I'm ready. And it was crazy, but I went to Bangkok. I went to Thailand. That was the farthest one-way flight you can go.
Yeah.
One night in Bangkok.
What'd you say?
One night in Bangkok.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little more than a night, but exactly. And I went to Bangkok. I was like, I didn't know what, I just need to go somewhere. And I went. And I remember being in Thailand and seeing, I was walking around and I'd see these kids with nothing, like literally rags on their back, kicking a Coke can around, playing soccer with the biggest smile on their face. And I was like, I have a company that's doing millions of dollars in revenue and Forbes 30 under 30. I have all these quote unquote things. There was no way I could smile like that, or I hadn't smiled like that in years. And I was like, what's important in life? Like, I want to smile. I want to try to figure that out. So that's what got me away from the hustle culture. I was like, I played that game, and by a lot of people's definition of quote unquote success, I was successful in that game and I hated it. And I was like, this is not the game I want to play. Like, felt like I was playing soccer and I was scoring a bunch of goals. Like, I don't want to play soccer. I want to play basketball. It's a different game. I don't care if I can kick a ball far. That's not important to me anymore. What's important to me is this.
So you're like Michael Jordan going to baseball.
Yeah. I don't know if I compare myself to Michael Jordan, but yeah.
Without secretly being suspended for gambling, right?
This podcast episode is brought to you by Bestie. Bestie is the first ever AI-powered post-purchase survey platform. Bestie is revolutionizing the way you understand your customers. Are you uncertain about what motivates your customers to choose your products? Unsure how customers are discovering your brand or which marketing channels are most effective in driving sales to your website? Or do you know how long it takes your customers to make a purchase decision? Look no further, because Bestie is the ultimate solution for you. With Bestie's cutting-edge AI feature, you can effortlessly create comprehensive surveys in just a matter of seconds without the need for any of your valuable time. And that is not all. Bestie's automated insights will regularly provide you with actionable information week over week, giving you the tools to drive your business forward. Now, with the holiday season in full swing, there is no better time to start gathering valuable customer data. Bestie is offering an exclusive 30% discount for Q4 alongside a 14-day free trial. Do not miss out on this opportunity to supercharge your business and truly get to know your customers. As e-commerce owners and agency owners ourselves, we use Bestie every single day to help us make better decisions on how we communicate, acquire, and grow our customers. Visit Bestie AI or check out apps.shopify.com/bestie today to secure your Q4 pricing. Don't wait. Start making data-driven decisions with Bestie today.
So, dude, you go to Thailand, right? And then you come back. I take it probably wasn't just like a journey like that, and you were back and you had made these changes. What, after you came home, how long did it take you to kind of make these changes to become who you are today?
I mean, it's an ongoing battle every single day, because there's so many unconscious habits that you aren't even aware of, right? There's so many unconscious thought tracks that you go through that you think are helpful. Like, as small as, waking up and checking your phone, to being like, oh, put your phone outside your bedroom when you sleep. That could be one that's more obvious. Or like, I thought I had to keep up with entrepreneurs, because I thought, like, your brain tricks you, right? Like, I would follow every other person at an e-commerce company, all their social medias. I had to watch all their posts because I was gaining insight to what I was doing. I realized I was just like way too competitive and jealous of them. And that's why I was following them. And that wasn't positive fuel. That made me feel like shit when they were posting their Shopify dashboards about how they're crushing it. Like I thought like I had to do it. So it's all these like, it's everything, and it doesn't stop. It's how you think about yourself. What happens when you look at your Shopify dashboard for the day and you see that your sales aren't what they were yesterday? What's the feeling you feel? Like, is it important to actually check your Shopify dashboard every 2 hours? Can you check it once a week? Will there be any change in the material of what's happening? So it's an ongoing thing, and there's so much stuff you have to unlearn, and I'm nowhere near getting to where I want to get to. But it's as soon as you acknowledge something, you say, shit, is this serving me or is this not serving me? And you could make a change.
Well, here's a question for you, man. So Feet, the brand itself, I don't know what it looked like 8 years ago, but the brand Feet feels fun right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's always been as fun as it is right now. And I wanted to ask if you disconnecting and being able to disassociate a little bit from the business side of things and find yourself and give yourself the freedom to be you and have real fun, like connecting human fun in the world. How much has that helped on the brand side for you to find a better voice and connect with people?
Definitely. I think the more that you're able to connect with yourself, the more you can be an open space to connect with people and create, right? Like, I think there's a point, and Feet's finally getting back to being fun. There's a point where it wasn't fun. And there's a point where we were so metric driven, right? And there's a point where every piece of creative was flat lay or a model walking into the shot, showing the stretch, walking out, because that's what converted, right? And like we got hooked on the Facebook drug that a lot of people got hooked on. We built a brand around that. So I'm trying to get it back to fun. It's hard, and you have to kind of sacrifice metrics, and you can't always be metric driven. Some things don't have an ROI, and that's okay. Like, you got to do what fuels you, because end of the day, these businesses run on energy. And if there's no energy behind the company, if people aren't excited about it, it's not going to work. Employees don't want to work there. You're not going to want to work there. There's a point with Feet where I didn't want to work at Feet. I didn't want to keep doing it. It wasn't fun. So I think it's important to make an environment that people enjoy. And yeah, you got to have fun with it. Otherwise, what's the point?
Taylor, do you have do you guys have investors, or do you guys have to answer to people?
Yeah, we have a lot of investors. We have a board of directors.
Okay.
And yeah, an amazing supportive board.
Reason why I ask is because like you see this a lot where brands feel like they have to constantly be growing and constantly be scaling. Hence the reason why they fall into the trap that you said you fell into, which is it's the flat lays, it's the what sells, it's the, are we spending more money every month? Are we making more money every month? Are we growing? Are we growing? Are we growing? And oftentimes when you get in that mindset, you sacrifice sometimes you sacrifice the branding initiatives that you don't see like immediate ROI. I spent $1 here. Where did I make that $1 back? What's your recommendation for people like yourself who
fill in Mark? I was about to say.
Oh, I was sorry, I cut out there. I think I was cut out right when I said, what's your recommendation? What's your recommendation as somebody who does have a board, who does have people to answer to? What are you telling them when you're doing or spending money on something that's not necessarily going to give you an immediate ROI?
It's challenging, right? Because it's easy for different people to see the business from different perspectives. So it's something I talk about with the board. Something I talk about, we have someone that runs our finance, right? And it's like, he is so focused on the day over day return on ad spend number. And I'm like, that's irrelevant, because the content we shot today won't get shown for 2 weeks, but that content's going to be awesome and change things. So I think it's just aligning objectives, and it's having people who understand you need to do these other things or the business is not going to work. And it's like, I'm lucky that I have investors and board that really trust me, and I really trust them. And we've been through some challenging times together, and we work through it. And it's important to try to figure out how you could trust each other and give each other that leeway to. End of the day, I'm fully confident that my board and investors believe in me. And if I say, look, it's super important for us to fly to Brazil for 2 weeks and do this whole campaign around this launch in Brazil, and it's going to cost $100,000, but it's going to back out here. And if they say, if you really believe this, like, go do it. Like, and I'm lucky to have those types of people around me.
Yeah, that's rad, man. I think people forget that a lot of business, I mean, although you have to be sound, like the math has to work, in a business, but a lot of making the math work are leaps of faith. Mm-hmm. And, I'm an analytical person. I love trying to make sure things are going to work out. But at the end of the day, like, you're never going to arrive to a number that makes sense when it comes to campaign and brand initiatives. Like, it's always going to be, hey, this worked before. I don't know if it's going to work again. It's always going to be a leap of faith. So if you can create that trust and that community within the company, that's where companies do special things, right? Because everyone's bought in. I loved what you said, that it's energy, and energy can manifest itself through money. Like, money is a form of energy, right? But the best form of energy is people. And so if you can actually harness energy from people who believe in the initiative, in the direction of the company, that's where companies do special things. And so as you came back, you figured out yourself, how easy was it to get people bought in on this new vision of getting back to fun for feet?
Definitely not easy. I mean, it's challenging. Like, it's a lot of trust and it's a lot of risk, because like, you don't know if it's going to work out, right? Like, whether it is a campaign where you're, spending on something that just feels so true to you. And I think it's the artist or the creative's dilemma, right? Like, you have an idea in your head and you want to go to it and you want to fully believe in it. But if you do it and it falls flat, like, you take it personal and you're like, oh shit, that's on me, which is, I've detached a lot from that, right? Like, here's my idea. My idea isn't me. Here's my idea. Here's what I think is going to work. We try it. You have to be unemotional about the results, which enabled you to analyze why it worked or why it didn't work and then improve on it. So yeah, I mean, it's challenging, but it becomes less challenging as you become less emotional. And it's hard to detach emotionally from, this is your baby. This is everything. You're putting your heart, blood, soul into it, but you have to detach from the results. Otherwise, you're only as good as your results. And then one day Facebook shits the bed and changes the algorithm. And then not only is your business failing, you think you're a failure in your head. And that starts cycling you down really, really bad. So detach from the results and just put your best effort out there and then analyze it.
Yeah, that's where that like have something like more important than the results of your business comes into play, right? Like, that's the foundation piece. Because like, if you're suck that week or that month, or Black Friday bombs, you got a family or you've got a faith or you've got something else that like you're attached to. So you aren't a failure. What happened was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. And even like 3 generations from now, which is like your grandkids, your grandkids' kids, they're not going to know you even existed. So like, in 3 generations from now, nothing matters. And if you can kind of get back to that perspective of like, that's really quick. Like, I don't even know my great grandparents' names. Like, my great grandkids probably won't know my name. Maybe they'll see a video of me, or I don't even know if they'll have videos then. Who knows? So like, you're just here for a minute and then you're gone. So it just doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd love to talk about one of these leaps of faith. Let's talk about, is it Venice Beach? There's a billboard.
Yes, I did put the billboard up in Venice Beach.
We'll have to clip this billboard in. Dude, that's actually, I don't know if you know this, but when you first posted about the billboard on Instagram, that's when I first reached out to you. I don't know if you recognize that, dude, but like, I saw that billboard. I'm like, I have to have this guy on this podcast. Like, I had heard of Feet, I had heard of you, but I hadn't attached you two together as one and the same, And then I saw that and I was like, dude, we have to have him on. So, dude, Mark, go. You asked the question that you're going with that, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, that's not a conventional way of advertising for a D2C brand.
Yeah, back to being able to get to a point where you can fully come up with an idea and not have anything stop you from getting that idea out of your body. So I think a lot of people get really frustrated and doubt themselves because they could dream up amazing things in their mind, but they can't get it out of their mind into the real world. And that was something I struggled with in a big way of like, every entrepreneur has ideas and they can't get that idea to look the same in the world. So to me, like, I just fully dropped that filter. I have an idea, I'm going to do it. And that billboard, like, I had a friend, that's in the center of Venice. It's the biggest, most prime billboard in Venice, California, in Venice Beach. And that's like, it's right next to the Venice sign right there. Everyone in Venice sees it. I had a friend who always had that billboard, and I was like, yo, if you ever are done with that billboard, holler at me. And he called me. He was like, hey, I have that billboard, but you need something by next week if you want it. And I was like, first thing that came to mind, like, I'm putting myself naked on a billboard. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell our board. I didn't tell our investors. I didn't tell our team. I called my friend who takes pictures, and I said, hey, I need you to come over tonight. And he's like, why? I was like, you got to take pictures of me naked. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm going to put myself naked on a billboard. Can you just come over and take pictures? So we did it that night, sent it over, put the headline, the only thing more comfortable than being naked, feet clothing. And yeah, I just didn't tell anyone. I just did it and screw it. And that was like back to in a world where everybody is the same and every brand goes through all these filters, right? Every brand will have a creative team, and then the CEO approves and the board approves it. And the end product after that would be soft and cozy. Get 20% off on your first order at feetclothing.com. Nobody cares about that. That is not at all. Or I was just like, screw that whole process. I'm going to go pose naked on the billboard. At least people will remember it.
What was the reaction from your board?
They were just like, you didn't want to tell us? And I was like, if I told you, it would not be here. It wouldn't have happened.
And tell our listeners what the tagline is on the billboard.
The tagline is the only thing more comfortable than being naked, and then feetclothing.com. And it's me laying across the billboard, fully naked, laying like a model with just a hoodie covering the parts that legally need to be covered.
Yeah, you got to cover those parts for sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear not like the intercompany reaction, but what kind of quote ROI have you seen from that initiative? Because that's a pretty out there initiative, but it seems to be paying a lot of social dividends in ways that, you know, if you're trying to look at things at like direct ROI, you might have said no to.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because everyone got so hooked on Facebook, right? So hooked on, I spent $1 on this campaign and I got $1.75 back on the same day. And it's like that type of marketing people got so hooked on to the point that if you spend on a billboard, anything that you can't track, people almost think it's not marketing, right? If you can't track it, you can't attribute it, it's not marketing, or there's no value to it. So this billboard is a good example. I want to say it was like $3,500 or $4,500 a month. I think we ran it for like 3 months. So you're looking at, let's just say $10. Yeah, it was because I was subleasing it from my friend who's had it.
Right.
So I think it was like $10,000 for 3 months. So it'd be a cost. ROI, how it backed out, I have no metrics at all. What I do know is the Instagram post got over 100,000 views. I had, for the 3 months, we had people sharing it and tagging us every single day. So in terms of impressions, millions of impressions on it. And it's a perception, right? Like everyone that talks about me or talks about the brand says, I saw the billboard, it was awesome. How do you track that? And that's the thing that drives analytical people nuts. And especially when you're in that kind of return on ad spend analytical mentality, it will drive you nuts because you're like, you can't track it. There's no value to it, which is, to me, such the wrong way to look at marketing. Because it's like you end up with, if you do have that analytical mindset, you end up only spending money on a Meta Advantage Shopping Plus campaign because it has the best ROI. You don't do any top of funnel, middle funnel, you do bottom funnel conversions, and you only spend money there that you can track. And then it's a race to zero. That is really a race to the bottom. So I think it's important to do other things and do things that you can't track.
Yeah.
Do you have any methodologies that you use to attribute the impact of those kinds of initiatives? Or are you guys looking at because some brands will just zoom out. I think one of the biggest problems is brands are so focused on the granular that they're looking at day over day and month over month when really they need to be looking at things as seasons and years. And even though seasons can change depending on what industry you're in. So curious if you have a way within Feet to try to measure those initiatives, or do you just say, hey, we know it's working because of these top line metrics and it'll play out over time?
Yeah, so the billboard was more of a one-off. So no metrics or any analytics around that. But yeah, no way to measure besides how I'm feeling with how people respond to it and talk about it.
And so it's probably good. It's probably good to allocate some budget to initiatives like that. right? Just like we're doing 3 fun campaigns a year.
Which is something I'm really, especially as we've seen this race to zero on Meta and digital advertising. In the past, we haven't allocated any budget to that. I would say 99% of our budget of marketing was allocated toward direct response marketing. And the goal was same day conversions. So that's a big thing I'm thinking about for next year is like, can we get to the point where we have the luxury to spend on these things? And it's a luxury. It's a luxury for a brand to be at a point where you could spend on something that doesn't need to return $1 in the same day. So I think the goal is use direct response marketing to the point where you have the luxury to spend on things that you don't need a direct ROI. You could wait 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And that I think pays out in the long term, but it's a scary thing to do. And it's a scary thing to invest in because you don't know if it pays out ever.
Right. Do you have any like thoughts or guidelines around like revenue, kind of like revenue baselines? Because you kind of did like a little like formula there is like hit direct response really, really hard until you hit this luxury point. Define what a luxury point might be for somebody to start to get a little bit crazy and do things that aren't going to show that direct ROI.
Yeah, I think a luxury point is when your contribution margin positive, or if you have cash in excess, right? So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to finance or run these types of companies, right? If you get to a point, and you can get this luxury by, if you have 60-day or 90-day terms for your manufacturer and you have cash for that 60 days before you sell, that's a luxury. Now you have cash in that time period that you could use for some of this stuff, right? If you have excess capital in any way, if you have enough of a marketing budget where you could break off $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month and say, we don't need a direct ROI on this budget, we could spend this. So the luxury, I mean, it varies, right? It could be $500 luxury. It could be
Sure.
$500,000 luxury. Some of the bigger, I think bigger brands probably call it experimental marketing.
Yep.
Where they have these budgets of experimental marketing where it's like, let's just go, like, it's almost like the venture capital model, right? 9 out of 10 is going to fail, but that one that hits is going to freaking hit, right? So I think it's a lot of things like that, but it's different for every brand. And a lot of it doesn't take capital. Like a lot of it is a viral TikTok that is, that could just do it, right? You can do that with your iPhone. So I think we're lucky we live in a world now where reach is democratized. So like you don't need to pay a premium to reach people. You could reach people on your phone, which is amazing. It's such an amazing time we live in where we could reach people. So you could do it in many different ways.
How does your brand reach correlate with your personal brand efforts? And how does your personal brand help your actual company?
Exactly. Thank you.
I think we live in a world today where people want to know who's behind companies, right? And I think especially if people don't know who's behind a company, they assume it's a Chinese drop shipper and somebody random, or they assume the person's hiding for a reason. So when I look at the biggest company, you get Amazon and Bezos, Zuckerberg and Facebook, Elon and Tesla. It's like people want to know who's behind companies, and that's how you kind of get this. They want to see it's real. They want to see it's cohesive. They want to know that it's not, a bunch of 60-year-old white dudes in suits in a boardroom trying to figure out how to sell women things by preying on their insecurities. They want to know it is something that feels genuine and that person is living the lifestyle. So I think it's so important, especially at our scale, is like, especially when you're trying to build a brand, you have to live the brand. And I know a lot of people that don't live their brand. I can see the friction it creates on themselves on a personal level. And I think the best e-commerce brands, or the best brands in general, are brands that are aspirational of the founder, right? And I look at some of these brands where it's like, it's what the founder, and it does two things. Because one, it helps the founder be that aspirational version of themselves. And then two, it's this aspirational thing that everyone who's kind of at that level or below or above can go aspire to be. And it's genuine, it's real, and people could feel that.
I have a question about athleisure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure when you got going, 8 years ago, maybe it wasn't as crazy, but Lululemon was still huge, right? 8 years ago. So you had, athleisure obviously was a trend. We know it's still growing, but why athleisure? And I'm sure people thought you were crazy for trying to even enter into the athleisure space.
Yeah, good question. I think of us less of athleisure and more of just comfy clothes and the future of clothing. And the way I think about it is, the way I started this company is I was working in investment banking and I wore a suit and tie to work every day. And the second I put on that suit and tie, I sat like this, my shoulders became stiff. And like, if I'm ever in a suit or wearing uncomfortable clothes, you'll see my body language is really stiff and I'm a shell of myself because I'm not comfortable physically. I can't be relaxed mentally. So that got me thinking, like, we're still dressing how the Pilgrims dressed when they came to the US 300 years ago, right? Like with uncomfortable, starchy, stiff clothing. It's like, why would you wear that? And then the more research I did on how clothing affects your mood and affects how you feel, I learned I'm extremely sensory sensitive to clothing. So if I wear clothes that are uncomfortable, it messes my whole body language, my whole energy, my whole mood. So I was like, I can only wear comfy clothes because this is how I'm the best version of myself. And I started to learn most of the US population, most of the population is sensory sensitive to clothing. They're just not aware of it. But when you're wearing comfy clothes, you feel more relaxed. So the whole concept was, can we make clothes that are so comfortable that you could wear them and feel like you're comfortable wherever you go, but style it enough that you could wear them in the office. You could wear them on a date. You could wear them at dinner. You could wear it when traveling. And that's the whole concept. So I think a lot of people put that into the athleisure category, which I understand because athleisure kind of does the same thing. But I look at us more as comfy clothing, less athleisure.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, I love that story. And man, I just had this thought about maybe that's why there's rising anxiety rates in the United States. Is the skinny jeans trend, right? For 10 years, people were just strapping on the tightest clothing of all time. Ugh. But there's a book called The Charisma Myth. And I can't remember who writes it or who wrote it, but she outlines what you just talked about, which I don't think she labels it as a sensory thing, but essentially that when you're in uncomfortable clothing, it ruins the way that you have charisma and the way that you can connect because you're constantly thinking about yourself, right? Like it always puts your focus on what's uncomfortable instead of where you're at and being able to focus on other people and just being yourself. So I think that's a really fascinating point that you brought up, is this idea that there's a lot of people out there that might be more charismatic or might, feel insecure, and it might just be as simple as getting some more comfortable clothes on.
Changing
clothes that you feel better in.
You said that book was called The Charisma Myth?
The Charisma Myth, yes.
All right, check it out. But it makes sense, right? So if you think about it, if you're sitting in your living room, on your couch, underneath a blanket, or just chilling on your couch wearing the comfiest clothes you could imagine, and somebody walks in also wearing the comfiest clothes and sits on the couch, it's going to be easy to talk to them because you're relaxed, you're comfortable, you're going to be charismatic, you're lounging on your couch, you're comfy, right? If you go and meet somebody and you're wearing a suit and tie and they're wearing business professional clothes, if they're women or men, whatever, and you're meeting for coffee at an office building, it's going to be hard to connect on a human level. You're going to be stiff. And that is all attributed to clothing, right? Your clothing dictates how you connect with people. If I was wearing, a suit, you guys would be treating me differently on this interview versus if I'm wearing my hoodie halfway zipped down. I'm showing you I'm comfortable, which is making you comfortable to be comfortable. And it's a cycle of comfortable. And I think that's where charisma comes. You're able to be charismatic when you're comfortable, when you're on your own mind thinking about yourself.
When did you make the transition? Because I know you guys started out more in the sock world. When did you make that transition into clothing?
It started with socks because when you wore a suit and tie, the one thing you could wear that was fun was socks. So I would wear, when I would go work in my corporate job and go work in banking and wear this suit, I'd wear these like Hawaiian pattern socks or pineapples and socks, something that I could, when I was wearing this black and white suit, being so bored, being stiff, I had these fun socks and I would look down at them and remember to smile and say like, there are pineapples in the world. Oh, like Hawaii is a place that I do go to and I do feel relaxed when I go there. So that's how it started. And then as I started learning more about clothing, I started realizing like, oh, wow, it doesn't have to be just your socks. You could dress like this head to toe and feel this good. And that's how we got into clothing.
Nice. And how was how did COVID do for your, like, that ethos of cozy and comfort tends, like from what we've heard from most people in that space, they did really well during COVID. How did you guys do?
COVID was, I mean, on the world level, a horrible thing. On the business level for Feet, it was amazing for our business. And I think it was amazing for the world to open up to realize what COVID did that I think was so special is it made people realize it wasn't work that made them stressed and anxious. And it wasn't the work they were doing. It was the clothes they were wearing. It was the office setting they were going into. And that's why people, when they were able to work from home from the first time, when they're able to work in clothes like this, when they're able to not wear shoes when they're working and be barefoot and not be constrained in all these ways, they realize, oh, shoot, like I could do my work and not be stressed and anxious. And I think it made a lot of people realize office culture and the clothes, that causes a lot of the anxiety. And that's why people love working from home, because you're comfortable. And if you're in the right mindset of comfort, and we all know, you could think of the time, like think about when you're in the best mood ever. Like nothing could bother you. Like when stuff happens, it's not that big of a deal, right? And then think about when you're in the worst mood ever and super anxious, and the smallest thing could tick you off. So it's more about how do you get yourself in this comfortable setting. I think COVID showed people you can get in that comfortable setting at work, which was amazing for us because it made people realize, like, shoot, I don't want to go back to wearing uncomfortable clothes. Like I'm doing better at work. I'm more productive and I'm happier. I think it's because of what I'm wearing. So that was a really positive thing for us.
That's the other flip side of COVID is I think it really ended up highlighting the human need for connection. I think a lot of people took for granted the need to be around people. So it's kind of the other side of the coin of not being in an office, right? Is the good side of that is a lot of people are like, hey, I loved being home with my family. Mm-hmm. And then other people who might not have had that same situation were like, oh, I really miss the office because they weren't getting that connection with other people. And when I've been looking at you and Feet, clearly you've done a really good job of connecting with people to build collaborations, for example. So I would love to hear about your efforts with collabs and how that's helped move Feet forward. And then also, how do you market those collabs in an effective way?
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned in-person versus digital, because I'm a firm believer that an in-person meeting or conversation or anything is so much more powerful than anything can be done digitally. So when you think about these collabs, like
as we record a digital podcast,
I know, right? But like, if we were in a room together, we'd be a lot more connected, right?
Oh, it's true.
Yeah. What we pick up on. So with our collabs, that was the first thing that was most important to me. Of if we're collaborating with somebody, we're meeting them in person, we're doing things in person. I think a lot of brands go wrong with collabs, especially bigger brands, is what they'll do is, they'll hire an agency to go do collabs with them, and they, have this director think of a concept, and then it's a half shoot or a full shoot day, and the talent meets them there for a day, and they're not actually talking to the person or the people behind the brand at all. It's all scripted, it's all structured. The way I've tried to go about collabs is it's a collab. In collab, it is collaborative. We meet, we talk. I say, hey, what do you want to do with this? Like, we talk about our goals. We talk about what product they want to make. They talk about how they want to show it, how they want to market it. And we see if there's alignment. So we actually say no to a lot more collabs than we say yes to. Because for me, it's like, and it sounds woo-woo, but like, if the vibes aren't right, we're not going to do it. And we've had some big people. I'm talking tens of millions of followers, A-list celebrities who we've had agreements for collabs with. And I've said, I pulled the collab and I said, we're not doing this collab. And anybody would say, you're crazy. This person is such a big celebrity name. And I said, they don't want to do it. I could tell by their vibes. Like, they're not excited about this. Yeah. And to me, if it's not genuine, it's going to hurt their brand. Because we've all seen celebrities hawking crap that they don't care about, and they're reading a script. I love my ex because it does this for Y. And it's like, just cringe. I don't want to be involved with that. For me, it's got to be genuine. It's got to be real. So I think that filtering system is the most important for collaborations. Like, if I don't vibe with them, if they don't vibe with the brand, not a fit.
What have collabs done for your brand? Like, how
collabs have been awesome. Yeah, collabs are great. They, one, for net new customers, right? Like, you are gaining a bunch of net new customers. So that's a positive. B, it's we try to really structure our collabs so they're win-win for our collaborators. So we pay extremely well for our collaborators, and we give them a lot of creative freedom, like probably too much creative freedom to the point that a lot of them are doing 10 or 15 revisions on product that ends up taking a long time to make. But it's amazing, right? Because we want them to be fully passionate around it. So
Totally.
when it's genuine, it's amazing, right? You're reaching a net new audience in a very genuine, positive way.
Yeah. What's your favorite collaboration you've done to date?
Oh, they're all so awesome. Some of the top ones come to mind.
It's like choosing his favorite child, Trevor.
Hey, you gotta ask it. It doesn't mean the other ones were bad.
They're all great at different times. Like Helen Owen was awesome because she cares so much about product. She really has an amazing eye for fashion and design and products. That was great. Chelsea Kawai was awesome because she was really about sustainability and making sure she pushed us in a really awesome direction that way. Kristen Cavalieri was so cool, so awesome to work with.
Nice.
Logan Paul was great. We did him in 2016. That was more of like a fun, crazy collab. So they're all fun. And
Awesome.
That's kind of by design, right? I don't want to do collabs that aren't fun, that aren't exciting.
And I think a lot of business owners and marketers are wondering, how do you actually land a collab with a celebrity? Because I think sometimes people think they're too small or maybe they're just insecure about their brand or themselves. So I'd love to hear how you took the step into actually getting these collabs and making those connections with these people.
I mean, it depends on the person. I think a lot of times you just have to ask, and you just have to ask. Where I always start is we always start with people that genuinely are wearing our product or like our product. So either they bought it at full price on our site or we've gifted it to them. And when I go through my Shopify and I see these celebrities who have bought our product, I'm like, yo, you just spent $1,000 on our store. I would have sent you this for free. And they're like, I love your product. I wear it all the time. I love buying and supporting. And then it transitions to a conversation of, wow, you actually do love our brand. That's so cool. And they're telling me, I love how the zippers go like this and the pockets are like this. And I'm like, would you want to make something? And they're like, oh my God, I would love to. So I think it has to happen organically. I think the same way it's like, how do I find someone to collaborate with me? It's the same question of, how do I find friends when I move to a new city? Or how do I find a significant other? And it's like, there's not an answer. Just be yourself and see who you connect with. And you can't force it. You can't try to get something out of someone because they're going to know right away if you're trying to get something. It's not about getting. It's about what can we do together and have fun.
I love that. Any specific collaborator you're got your eyes set on that you're trying to land?
Ooh, 2 guys I would love to work with on the men's side would be Brad Pitt or Matthew McConaughey. I think they're both just so chill, such our vibe, and they're awesome. On the women's side, Miley Cyrus is really cool. I like the way she lives life and does stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
We got to blow this up, dude. Let's get Matthew McConaughey.
That's
All
right.
right.
Let's get him connected to feet.
All right.
I don't know if you've watched any or learned or read his book or anything about him, but he has the most amazing life story. He has such a good philosophy and a lot of things we talk about, right? Like being able to enjoy life and be chill through the journey and also be ambitious, but have balance. He's a massive role model.
Yeah.
And he's half brothers with Woody Harrelson. So
there you go.
Is that what the internet says? Is that true?
Allegedly half brothers. But you should hear them talk about it. It's funny. There's a clip of them.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I need to ask this question before we forget. How do you determine how much to spend on marketing?
That's a good question. I think it's different for different companies and different objectives. So you have to figure out, what is your objective? I always work backwards from what is the goal? And then from there, you can figure out what you could spend on marketing. And if it's on a specific product, so let's say you order 10,000 units of a hoodie, and with that, you have your COGS and you have what's left, right, after your cost. Okay, what % of that do you want to spend on marketing? That product, and then you work within targets there. You kind of work backwards. So I think a lot of the more analytical you can get about it, the more you could shoot from the hip and be creative. So I think a lot of people think frameworks limits creativity, but to me, frameworks and boundaries actually enable creativity. Because now you know what framework you're working in, and you can be so free within that framework. So
Yeah.
it depends on the product, depends on the time, but the more you can get an idea of that, the more you can feel free and creative.
Do you have any ratios that you could give to help some marketers out? Because I think a lot of marketers out there do either overspend or underspend. Like it's really hard to find companies that find the sweet spot of like, hey, this is where we're growing. This is where we're growing at an efficient scale profitably. And I know it has a lot to do with obviously contribution margin and products and what you're advertising. But I'd love to hear what your ranges are. Like what's a low end range of percentage of revenue and what's a high end range of percentage of revenue that you've spent?
Yeah. I think it's important to look at the full picture. So let's just say you have 100% of revenue. And then from that, you have your COGS, which is your product cost, and then plus your shipping cost. So let's say for this made up example, let's just make up numbers. Let's say you're 100% of revenue, your COGS, so your cost of items plus shipping is 30%. Boom. Now you're left with 70% of revenue, right? If you look at your overhead and you look at your overhead a function to what you think you're going to do. So let's just say you're doing $1 million a month and your overhead is $100K a month. Boom. Your overhead's 10% of revenue, right? If you look at it that way, if you're at that scale, so you're left with 60. And that's a question of, okay, what like can you spend and what EBITDA margin do you want? Do you want to make 5%? Spend 55% of revenue on ads. Do you want to make 20%? Spend 40% of revenue on ads. And then you need to do sensitivity analysis to if you don't hit that $1 million scale. You don't hit $1 million that month. You end up doing 300K that month. Boom, your 100K of overhead is now 33% of revenue. So now it's like, shit, if you don't get to that scale, you can't spend more than 30% of revenue because you'll be unprofitable. So I think if you could kind of look at the sliding scale that way and have sensitivity within it, that's how I look about what percent you could spend on marketing.
Dude, last thing that I want to say, sorry, Trevor, I keep jumping in here, but I want to point it out because what you said is something that everyone, whether you're in business or if you're a creative or in marketing, needs to hear, which is that constraints breed creativity. And it's so easy to look out there and see real life examples of that, which is literally every great movie and every great album usually was produced under some really significant constraints. There's a reason why people always point back to early albums of the biggest bands as their best albums, because they had significant constraints when they're producing albums in their early days. And then once the constraints get released, like think about Star Wars, right? Like the first two Star Wars are phenomenal movies. Like you might not be a Star Wars guy, but the first two, New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, are great. And ever since then, it's just sunk to mediocrity at best. But at those first two movies, there were some serious constraints and limitations, so they had to be creative. And it's that creativity that sparks the connection with people, right? It's not the unlimited amount of resources is not going to save you. It's the creativity within the constraints. So I love that you pointed that out.
And I think a lot of creatives are scared of constraints because they think it's going to constrain their creativity, but it creates it. And the best example I have of this is I took a writing class in college, and one of the prompts was write a story about a family, write a TV show about a family. And your mind, if that's your only prompt, like it's hard to come up with a TV show about a family. You're like, what the heck I'm going to write about? What the family? It's just so many decisions. You're like, what? And then this was a whole example to show us. The next prompt was write a Simpsons episode, and here are your constraints. Homer has to do something stupid. Bart has to get in trouble. Lisa has to be smart. Marge has to be nice. And then immediately all these ideas start coming of like, oh, what can Bart do to get in trouble? He could graffiti on this thing. He could do that. Oh, what's something stupid Homer could do? He could crash his car. He could do this. He could do that. And like, boom, instantly you have so much more creativity because of these constraints. So I think any creatives just try to honor constraints and look at them as a positive thing, not a negative.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Mark, I like those questions. One question I have before we kind of end here is, what's one of the biggest mistakes you're seeing brands make today?
I can only pick one.
You can pick multiple, but if there was just one out there that like
a lot of these are mistakes.
Out.
Yeah, a lot of these mistakes that we made. So I think a big mistake is overhead too high, right? I think a lot of people want to think people are the solution, especially in the e-commerce world. You don't need that many people. Employees are expensive. It takes a lot of time and energy. So a lot of teams are too bloated, which is number one. Two, another mistake that we made, investing too heavily in inventory and not being really critical of your buys, because that could set you back so much if you buy too much or too little of the wrong inventory. So inventory buying.
Totally.
And I think three is, and this is the most important mistake brands are making, thinking there's a silver bullet. And I spent so much time thinking there's one thing, right? And you could see it that people in these communities talk about, like, oh, TikTok shops, that's the thing that saves everything. Or like, oh, Triple Whale, you plug in this thing. Triple's a great platform, but oh, the way it shows you data and passes it back, it's better, right? Or this, or like, oh, text message. There's always this like shiny object that you think like, boom, you do this, and it's like 5 times return on ad spend, and everything's great. Like that is so far from the truth, and that is like too many people get hooked on like this one thing that doesn't exist. It really does not exist. It's a bunch of 1% and 2% changes, not these 100% or 50% changes.
Dude, I love that. We see that all the time. Like silver bullet marketing used to work back in like 2016 when you didn't have as much competition and when Facebook ads were as crazy challenging as they are now. But I really, really love that, dude. One last question I have for you is what's your favorite revenue milestone you hit and why?
Revenue milestone. Honestly, the thing I probably got the most excited about was in 2015. It was like a year into the business, and we did a $10,000 day. And I was like, holy shit, we did $10,000. That was more money than I made in my internship the year before, the whole summer. And I was like, I worked 10 weeks to do $10,000, and we did $10,000 in 24 hours. And that was like, wow, this internet thing is real.
This internet thing is
this World Wide Web can do it.
Exactly. And that was a great feeling.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. Well, Taylor, bro, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. This has been really, really awesome. Where can people find you and where can people find Feet?
Yep, I'm Taylor Offer, TaylorOffer on pretty much everything. LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Venmo, and then FEH. I'm just kidding with the Venmo. FEH on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere else.
Dude,
and then feetclothing.com is our website. And we're running an amazing Black Friday deal right now, so go check it out.
Let's get it.
Go send Taylor some Venmo money to get a bagel scoop, all right?
Yeah.
Do not Venmo me. If you Venmo me, I will probably Venmo you your money back in full and then give you a discount to Feet and say, don't Venmo me. So actually, if you want to do that, if you want a discount to Feet, I'll Venmo you.
You get an even bigger discount. Love it. All right, Taylor, thank you so much. We love you guys, audience. We appreciate you listening in, and we will see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. Please go rate and subscribe the podcast, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear from you because we always want to make this podcast better. If you want to get in touch with me or give me any direct feedback, please go follow me and get in touch with me. I am at the Trevor Crump on both Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we will see you next week.